Hey everybody, Leslie Roberts here, out in the garage, still basking in the glow of a fantastic 6th annual Don Matthews CZ World Championship. What an event, huh? I think this was the best one so far, and I hope you agree. We had over 30 international riders from Europe, New Zealand, all over, and then some long distance riders coming from all parts of the United States to make this is what I think was the most memorable, most exciting, best event so far. We had over 360 entries, 50% more than last year. Yeah, okay, we had a few minor issues, and they have been cleared up, and I guarantee you that those issues that we had last year will not be present this next year. But look, just take a reflection back with me for a moment. Man, wasn't this a great event? I mean, aside from a couple of our experts getting hurt out on a seriously challenging track, boy, the racing was great. The competition was top-notch. Guys and gals earned their trophies, and as far as I'm concerned, it went off really, really well. I want to thank everybody for sending in their comments and criticisms right away so we could get on to making improvements in what we're going to do for the following year. In fact, we got some real big changes I'll be speaking about here in a moment. But I want to say this, the turnout was fabulous. The attitude from everybody was just great. What a spirit of cooperation, generosity, loveliness. If this wasn't inspired by Rob and Hannah, I don't know what was. His hand was on everything. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful event as far as I'm concerned. Guys, we had all the world champions and ex-pros were out. And I had the great honor of interviewing Zdenek Velki and Jaroslav Falta for a 15-minute video, which is up now on CZ Pirate TV, which I would encourage all of you to watch. It was a real moment for me. And this was the first time in 45 years that anyone has bothered to interview those two guys here in America. So it was a great honor, and boy, what an event. Now, we're going to have a few changes for next year, which I'll be speaking of. But before I go any farther, I would be remiss in not mentioning that right after the race, we lost two of our community. Ian Robertson. The funny, gregarious, generous, lovely Ian, who I finally got to meet and talk with this year. He passed on due to an accident shortly after the race, and he will be missed and remembered, and so our hearts go out to Ian and his family. I also must mention the passing of Diana Rollins, who succumbed to cancer shortly after the race, and she too will be missed. And there is a hole in the CZ community today. All right, folks, the big news for next year is that we are going to a 2-day racing format. That's right, Saturday will be a race afternoon, and Sunday, of course, will be devoted toward all things vintage. Saturday afternoon will be what we're calling a long travel or post-vintage afternoon. We're going to start it off with an adult mini classes and go from there. Everything post 1974 and upwards, all the way to modern bikes. We're going to have a class for everybody. The class is ranging from pre-aluminum frames to aluminum frames, water-cooled, air-cooled, everything long travel will be done on Saturday afternoon. We're going to call that the Rob and Hannah Cup in honor of my dear long-lost brother. I think that's appropriate. We will be telling you a lot more about that, how the thing will be structured, etc. But get your post-vintage bikes ready, and we will rip them up on Saturday. Track's going to be perfect. The vintage bikes won't have to be worried about a deeply rutted, thrashed track to bang around on their 7 and 4s. No, all that takes place on Saturday. We're going to be shortening how Saturday operates as well. We're always going to keep the bike show. We're going to try and do a couple interviews. Interviews are very tough out there at the track, as I'm sure you can know. But no, the Rob and Hannah Cup will be happening day one, and then of course vintage bikes of all classes and displacements will be happening on Sunday. Again, we're going to be giving you that shortly once we get all the details worked out. Now, I do want to say that we've been forced to drop the Hodaka Harry Taylor Cup. A number of reasons, but principally we just didn't get the participation that we had hoped for. So the Harry Taylor Cup will no longer be a feature of the Don Matthews CZ World Championships. I'll tell you what will be a feature though, and what we're going to focus on, and that is sponsoring bikes and riders. You're going to hear a lot more about that as the winter and the spring approaches, but the idea that you can come from a long distance and get on a finely prepared CZ or other vintage machine, or even a post-vintage machine, and ride it here at our race is something that is taking on, it's really getting legs. We're getting a lot of people inquiring and interested. And again, I'll be speaking a lot more about how you go about sponsoring, how you can get a ride, who you talk to. At this point, if you're interested at all, get on our Don Matthews page on Facebook, and write. If you have a bike or have an interest in riding or sharing, get hold of Winthrop Hires, Harold Kohler, or even Doreen Payne, our women's CZ world champion. Doreen is excellent in putting riders with bikes and whatnot. But if you are curious and have an interest, contact one of those three, and we'll get the ball rolling. Now, we've put up on our website, czriders.com, a donation page. It's not something that we normally do, but we've had some real assistance in the last year from people stepping forward saying, hey, I want to give a few bucks to you guys. We're not asking, but if you would like to, it would surely help, because we're an all-volunteer organization. So it's on the website. Take a look. If you have a couple bucks you want to throw in, we'd appreciate it. Also, we're going to have the DVD of this year's event sometime in the next few weeks when I get it together. And this is going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a lot different than the last few years' DVDs with a lot of music and stuff going on. No, we're going to take a different approach, and I think you're going to dig it. I sure hope you like it. Also, if you get a chance to go over to CZ Pirate TV and take a look at that Falta interview, do so. It's really, really interesting. Falta's responses to some of my questions were really eye-opening, at least to me. So I invite you to take a look at that, all right? And now, on a personal note, I am well. You don't see my wound vac here, and you don't see any IVs or any crazy stuff sticking in my arms. No, I am well. After 3 years and 4 months, I am actually illness-free. I have had a rough go. As some of you know, I've had a real rough go. I've had a number of repeated infections. In fact, what happened was 3 years ago and 4 months, I developed a pressure wound on my butt, on my right butt. And it soon became infected with MRSA, with Klebsiella, with Morganella, with Pseudomonas, with what other strep. I had strep in there. I even had candida, a yeast infection, due to so many antibiotics, which led to 3 different kidney infections, and including when I had a kidney infection and I was sick as hell, I got evacuated during the campfire. The thing that made everything horrible for me was we discovered this summer that I had a systemic E. coli infection, which was keeping things from healing. That E. coli is a bastard, and he was hiding behind these other bugs. But we finally, after 4 surgeries this summer, 4 months on my back, in bed 24/7, lots of misery. If you're interested sometime, talk to me at the Don Matthews, and I'll take you through what it's like to be a paralyzed person with pressure wounds and infections. It ain't no fun. But I'll tell you what, my wife, a registered nurse, saved me a number of times. My wife has stood by me through everything, and she is the greatest woman I've ever met, and I owe everything to her and God, and my friends who have stepped forward to support me and to be kind and loving through all this misery. It's impossible to know what we've been through, but just know that I'm through it, I'm well, and I'm finally well after 3 years plus. Man, I've been through the stuff. But feeling great, I'm ready for work. I'm going to get back into what I'm doing, and I want to thank everybody for reaching out and supporting and taking care of me emotionally through all this time. It really means a lot to me. So no more wound vac, no more drugs, no more infections. Boy, am I so glad for that. I do have a couple souvenirs from the whole experience, though. I have a scar running from the back of my leg all the way up. It is unbelievable. You can, if you, hey, what the hell are you doing looking at my ass?